realized that a lot of you were not there in the first meeting, and then also um, there were also some new enrollees. In fact, the number has swelled to 25. So last time I said I was shocked with 22, but now we're at 25. Although when I checked the Smiths, there were 23, and apparently there were two who just enrolled today. And then, but when I checked Canvas, there were still 22 enrolled. So, by the way, we will be slowly transitioning to Canvas, hopefully by the next 2 weeks. Okay, as soon as everyone has their USC email, we were told to already transition to Canvas. Last time we talked about me, and also class policies, grading system, survey results, class. And then I also gave some classworks, which are just to watch a video, and also a homework, which is to divide yourselves into groups with 3 members each. And during that time, there were 22. So one group will have 4 members, but right now we'll have to check. I mentioned last time that we will not end this session unless we have established the groupings. Otherwise, we are not going to move on. So these are the 23, and then I hope your name is right there, except for the 2 who just enrolled today, um, making the whole thing 25. Okay. So when I gave the classwork, it was actually a video that you have to watch. There were 11 videos, and then I asked whether which one you find confusing. Of course, there's a lot to say that everything's okay, but some people have to, we're also confused somehow one way or another. And then, so that's why 72.7% says, okay, there's no problem. So what were the comments that were given? So one said, I want to learn more about making your own data, and the check video is one of the process that I want to learn about. So making data depends on what research you're going to do. Okay, so I will guide you through that. So that's why we have these groupings, because you're going to do research, and then it has to be different from everyone so that there is exposure, depending on the amount of the type of interests that each one has. Okay. Then making description of the graph. That's something else that you'll have to, someone wants to learn. Measures of tendency is not much familiar, and so where should I also apply it? It's a different process compared to graphs. Okay, so maybe you cannot appreciate right now, but measures of tendency is really very important. Like for example, the means and average, when we have to talk about how many members in a family at an average in the Philippines or in that country. So we're actually making use of that. And then we have to talk about the effect of outliers. And then the topics are well explained, though the challenge will be on the actual application and relation to our study. So I have a cat here, so please bear with me. So yes, actual application. That's why in this course, it's important that you actually apply it to a particular study. So, but the study will be different from your thesis, and then it will have to be a scale down. That's why we have to talk about what study you're going to do. The information in the videos was well presented and well put together by the speaker, which made each video very much understandable, even to a beginner's perspective. However, I did get personally a bit lost in the earlier parts when it came to scientific notation and conversion due to mere fact. Huge quantities and values confused me to an extent. I guess this is true to all of us when the numbers grow big, so we tend to get confused. But don't worry, it's just a matter of practice. Okay. Question for part 5, how do we know if the graphs presented is or isn't acceptable? If not, how can we achieve acceptable result? Question for part 9, how do we know if the conclusion from a graph is or isn't valid? If not, how can we validate it? So these are precisely the things that we are going to talk about in this course. Okay, we will answer that throughout. The videos are easy to comprehend and the lessons were very, wait, down. And the lessons were very informative and direct, especially to refresh some high school, college lessons. Good for you because you've been through this before. Some, it may be their first time. The presenter did clear explanations on data gathering and analysis from part 1 until 11 of the video playlist. Topics were easy to understand as I have encountered some of these discussions during my primary and secondary education. Again, good for you also. The system of data analysis that I learned before is still the same for postgraduate studies. Good thing these videos help me refresh my memory and help me understand the overview of this course, which will be helpful to our thesis. So actually, it's everything is very simple. I think that's the that will help you through this course. No? That mantra of saying everything is actually simple. Um, the only thing that confuses it is that you think that it has to be complicated to be acceptable. No, no. Even my dissertation, I just finished um, defending it. I was a bit worried also, but then I just have to ask my advisor, is this really worth doctorate material? And then of course, he said, okay, because for me it was already simple, because my tendency is really to make things simple so that people who read whatever I write understands. So anyway, so the course content finally of MAR 100 will be this. We will start with this. It's a work in progress. Um, we'll review a little bit of the research process because you actually have another course on that. But we will deal more with the qualitative and quantitative analysis. So it's a very simple uh, course outline. We'll talk about the issues of both analysis. And then in terms of
Sir,
qualitative analysis,
sir,
yes,
sorry to interrupt, but your PowerPoint was removed on the bigger screen.
it's not shared anymore.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me stop sharing and then share again. At what point? From the start?
No, sir.
Oh,
Just
just
when you
now?
showed the new slide, yeah.
Okay, so let's see. How's this? Wala gyapon. Do you see the presentation now, the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay na,
Okay.
sir.
Yes. I just want you to know that when I share PowerPoint, I cannot see the chat box. So you have to unmute and you have to tell me. So thank you for telling me about it. Okay. So anyway, so in qualitative analysis, there are two that we will talk about, which is very, very important. And I think most of you will make use of it. Analysis of textual data and analysis of visual data. So I'll give more details later. And then we also talk about quantitative analysis. There's always that misconception that if your research is not quantitative, it's worth trash. No, no. Um, you cannot maybe you cannot avoid quantitative, but you cannot also say that um, qualitative is not worth anything. A lot of research actually is qualitative or a combination of both. And then most of the quantitative purely are say pure sciences and some other things. No? So we will talk about descriptive or summary statistics and inferential statistics. So towards the second half of the semester, actually we will be talking a lot about inferential statistics. So we will cover almost everything during the first half because inferential statistics, that's where we learn so many types of methods, statistical methods. But then, as I mentioned, this is work in progress. So possibly when I see that some topics may not be very important, especially for architects, uh, I might not discuss it. Because, for example, if the topics you chose for your research call for other methods, so we'll prioritize those because at least you get to understand the lesson because it is being applied to your current research. Okay, so review of the research process. Um, I decided to just use a single source for this session, which is from the University of West England. There's a link, there's a URL there. You can also go to it because I tried to abbreviate all the information. So this source gave all of this process, and then actually it is the same process as anything else, just worded differently. And then as you can see, it is very linear, but in reality, it does not follow that linear process. No, it's not really uh, first first things identifying, second searching, third is critical appraisal, like that. So when you do your research, you actually go back and forth. No? Sometimes you have to repeat what you did because you read something, more information, you gathered more information. So it's a actually like a mess, you know, when you do research. But the challenge there is how to put order in that mess. Okay, you have to be very flexible so that if you suddenly learn something new, another you found another book, stumbled on a website, and then it has very good information, or someone gave you new data, so you should be able to know where to go back and then how to continue without creating confusion on your own schedule, in your own also frame of mind. Okay, so you should be able um, to work despite that. Qualitative analysis. Okay, so these are the types of data that we will discuss. Um, Documents, for example, diaries. Okay, especially if you are into history, you'll be dealing with manuscripts. So the ones who wrote them would be probably dead. So you can no longer interview them. And I doubt if interview with the spirits will count as valid data. No? So you'll have to interpret what you've read. And the narrative, so for people who's alive, or alive, so you interview. But then how do you process interview so that you can actually convince people that the result of the interview is important, no? Is significant. So I encountered this problem when one of my colleagues in the San Carlos did his master's, and then his thesis is plainly based on interview. And so that's why we have to guide. I have to guide him through how to process interviews. And then visual. So these are things that you observe, and then you take field notes, you take photographs, which we do a lot, and then videos. So how can they be used in your research? Okay, of course, when you write your thesis, you don't show the video, but then when you actually report it, so you mentioned that there's a video, and then probably just show frames. So some issues with uh, qualitative research is, of course, it's not numbers. Therefore, you cannot really say pinpoint that this is not equal to two. The number is not equal to this number. So there are sometimes problems of trust, whether it's trustworthy, it's credible, and then whether it can be used to another situation, no transferability, because normally in qualitative research, the result are based on the peculiarity of the environment. So not only the physical environment, even the the work environment, the intellectual capacity of the people, the culture, so many things. So for this to be replicated, so a lot of things have to be equal, and normally that's a bit difficult. So that's why mostly uh, the qualitative analysis is more applicable when you are trying to explain something very specific. Okay, and then you're lucky if you it is actually something that can is replicable. Um, Dependability and confirmability. So there's always that doubt, no? In quantitative analysis, we'll talk about two types of statistics, which mentioned earlier. Um, Descriptive statistics include measures of central tendency. We mentioned earlier about averages, means, median, mode, and measures of variability about the average, so the range and standard deviation. So this give readers a picture of the data collected and used in the research project. Um, and normally, this descriptive statistics is statistics that you see in the media, when they show a graphs. So most of the time it's the descriptive because it's easier to understand. When you say that, okay, the average household income is like this and like that. So, what are the implications? And then the politician would say something. Um, but inferential statistics is needed, especially when we are already making conclusions. Okay, these are the outcomes of statistical tests, helping deductions to be made from the data collected. So to test hypothesis, set and relating findings to the sample or population. Okay, there are many. I don't think I think I did not write them down here. But in the videos that I asked you to watch, so these types of data were explained. So categorical data, there are three levels of measurements, either nominal, which talks about some inherent order in categories like eye color, ethnicity, diagnosis, then ordinal. So there has to be a proper order. And then binary when there are only two options like black and white, male, female, yes or no. So the other is quantitative, which is either discrete or continuous. Discrete is when uh, you describe something in whole numbers. It's like a count. So size of household, for example. Then continuous is measured. Okay, so like temperature is measured, height, age, they are measured. So those are just the glossing over of what we will expect in the next week. Okay, so I hope that today is the last day that people will be added to this class. No? It's starting to get more complicated than the undergrad. So my design class has only 19 students. This one has 25. Um, I'm going to put up a YouTube video which will talk about research topic identification. And you're going to watch it individually. And then you will describe briefly what part of the video, or no, I'm sorry, this you will give a proposed topic one topic. Okay. Based after hearing the video, that should help you create one topic. So I'm sorry I was not able to change the text of this slide. Um, okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now because so right now what we need to do is um, to settle the groupings. Have you okay? Nikki Mendoza is not here yet. I'll try to add her. I think I can add her. Okay. Um, so in the chat box, those who have already formed a group, please type the names of the people in your group. Hello, Nikki. Welcome. We just ended, but then actually we're still processing the groups. So you're just in time, or at least for the most important part. You may now actually unmute your mics if you want, so that you can talk if you need to. But I really just need to settle the our groupings. So who'd like to start out? Because otherwise, I'll be forced to form the groups for you. Um, so there's a group: Ebsu, Veronica, Arong, and Julius Tadeo. There should be 3 members. So you need one more. MARC IA, Caliso, Quijano, lacking one. Demetrio and Ag, you're always paired. There's a group of 4 people: Sanchez, Ersalia, Ersalia, Bulan, and Mendoza. Actually, one in a group of 25. Yes, one group will have 4. But then we now have 2 groups of 4 people. Um, so, Bea, Mika, and Dexter and Dan has formed a group UD. Group CDO. um, Demetrio, I think you were mentioned earlier. Yeah, group CDO. So you now have a 3rd member, lacking 1 member. Yeah. Okay. So what's going to happen here? I will join group CDO since I'm from Osamis. Okay, so group CDO, please take note of Miss Imbong joining your group. Okay, so your assignment, which is individually, once you know your group already, what you will do is that you think of a topic which your group might be interested in. So you may need to confer with them what sort of what their interests are, and then you suggest a topic on your own. And then I will then give the topic to the group. There should be 3 topics already, one from each member, or 4, depending on the number of members. And then you will discuss it. And then next meeting, you will present it. And if you can't, we will discuss it. Okay? So right now, what we need to establish are the groupings. Next week, what we need to establish are the topics. Okay? So they will still be, my lecture proper will start next week. Today we were just glossing over the topics that we will be talking about for the whole semester. But next week, we will be talking about, we'll go directly to the qualitative. Um, so our session will be divided into 2, the lecture on one side, and then the next is the project. Okay, and then we will do it slowly, and one step at a time, so that you are not overwhelmed. Okay. Um, After this, is that mine? It's not mine. So after this, I'll collect all of these names, and then I will inform everyone of the final grouping. So whoever are not here, I will be the one to assign. Okay? So I'll do that maybe tomorrow, and then hopefully there will be no violent reactions. Okay? So is there any other question before I dismiss the group? So I can actually leave earlier, and then you just continue to chat with each other to form the groups. And then, so how is this? Kuha na lang, no? At the end, just send me a message. Okay? Ang dili mag-send sa akong message, I'll depend on the recording of the chat here. Kung unsa ang grouping.
Sir,
Okay? Yes.
can you cite some examples of the topics if how complex?
No, not complex. It should not be complex. So the question should be how easy or how
Okay.
simple. Because
Okay.
the important thing here is that we gather data and then we analyze. Okay? So we're not going to solve the problems of the world. We're just going to solve something in the neighborhood, parang ana, or something common of common interests. What could be a topic? For example, if you're interested in, depends on your field of interest. I'm thinking now of something that's bugging me lately, since I'm into restoration, and then they're restoring a ceiling. So I was wondering, okay, why isn't anyone making a research about the works of Ray Francia, who is supposed to be a famous painter of ceilings of all old churches? So I will probably write that as a topic, but then what data do I need? So it's more visual, because you're going to now describe Ray Francia's work into different criteria. So what are your criteria for describing his work compared to others? So that's just one, but it's very qualitative. Or if you want, show me tell me some field of interest that you may have. Biking, for example. So you would like to know how many are now biking after the pandemic, something. But the data has to be something that you can gather easily. Mine I can gather because I work here. I can go out. It's in the same complex, And then there are books in the internet, and I can also gather books from other people. They can send to me. But then, for example, the question of biking, you certainly cannot go out and make actual survey and accounts of bicycles. So if you're interested in that, so you have to think also of what kind of data can I get where I can still satisfy my curiosity. So it has to be something very doable, considering all your circumstance, that you're far apart, and then we're dependent on second-hand data. So I guess I have to underline that, no, it has to be second-hand data. We cannot do primary data at this point. Um, if you want, it can be, if you think that your thesis is something that is interesting and also easy, so you can also suggest that. No? So if you watch that video, I'm sure that it will help you think of a topic. But I'll tell you ahead, no? In that video, number one is really personal interest. So which means you have to know what are you interested at, okay? So you have to sort of go into a self-assessment exercise. What are my interests? Um, and it does not have to be, well, it's better if it's related to your field. Um, I noticed there's a group CDO, and hopefully they're in the same field or same course, but if they're not, so it's a bit of a challenge. So your topic might end up not related to each other's field as long as they're common interest. Okay. So if it's really difficult to strike a common topic, a common field of interest along the field.
We already have a topic in mind actually.
Hmm.
For
I have
each
already chosen.
yes. Our only problem it's very much CDO based, so it's based on our location. So I think that's our problem because one of our
Why is
members is.
that a problem? Because I cannot go to CDO.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not the one gathering data, so it's no problem. In fact, it's the best, no? You're a CDO, so your topic is in CDO.
Yes, yes.
I did my doctorate in Japan, but my thesis is in Cebu because, well, actually, I'm more familiar with Cebu, and then that gives me an excuse to go home. But it's where you're more comfortable at, no? When you gather data. So if you're CDO, all of you, but you have something in common somewhere else, like in Cebu, so that could also be a topic, I mean, a consideration. Um, so the problem now is so if the three of you already agreed on a topic, you still need to submit individually the topic. So I expect that it's the same topic for the three of you. That only tells me that you've already decided, so there's no need to settle. But otherwise, if you have not, so we'll settle, we'll choose which topic. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yes.
yung topic po natin na ipapasa is topic lang po.
Topic lang.
Topic lang po.
There's a format for the topic. The video will tell you how.
Okay po.
And then you don't need to okay, you might want to add to describe, no, to write why you prefer that topic, so that it's easier when we discuss it, and it also helps me make a decision or advise you.
Mm-hmm. Noted, sir. Thank you
Yeah.
po.
Okay. So before we write a topic, there's always a researchable topic. It has to be researchable, no? you have to, there has to be a reason why you chose this topic. And then when you write that, it's normally called, that part called rationale. And sometimes they don't write it as rationale, just background. Okay, so it's based on observation. There's something that you know, and then there's something that you observed, and then when you try to when you try to compare what you know with what you observed, and then you identify there's a gap. So normally that a good topic would be about that gap. Why is this happening? So for example, if this class is supposed to be full of bright students, and then when you look at the records, you see that the grades are very low. So there's a gap, no? They expected that everyone should be high grades because it's a class full of bright students. So that's a good topic. So why are these students getting low grades when in fact they are a homogeneous group of bright students? So there you have a topic. So you identify a gap, and that's the reason for the topic. So that makes also the topic very significant, no? But that could be a guide for you when you describe why you chose this topic. Okay, so the identification of the gap. Okay, any more questions?
Sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. Architect Tadeo and I were partners in, we belong to the group EBSU.
With
He
what?
is in
Excuse me.
AS, group EBSU.
Group also, yes.
He is major in architectural science and I am in interior architecture. So this
You are what? I'm sorry.
interior architecture po.
Interior. Oh.
We come up with a title over this the whole week. This last week lang we discuss this week pala. We discuss what are possible topics since we are both connected to the academe and we are the primary users of this facility. So we come up with an assessment. Is it okay
Yes.
to have the topic assessment on the physical condition of the drafting studios of our college?
An assessment requires testing, unless you
Uh,
already have the data, because you're going to assess, for example, in terms of what of for lighting or for something else. But there's always this will be very quantitative, no?
okay,
Um,
sir.
it's a good topic if you have access to the data.
Okay,
So
sir.
if I so you can still go to EBSU, no? Now,
Yes, sir. Yes,
you,
sir.
okay. So if if you can have access to data, it's no problem.
Okay,
I know of someone who actually made something like that as a
yeah,
thesis.
architect Montaño,
Okay.
Charlotte Montaño.
Did she finish?
Yeah, yeah,
Did she,
yes, sir.
yeah,
She is currently
so
pursuing her PhD.
I hope you're not just copying her work.
No, no, sir. Actually, what
Yes.
we have in mind is it's somewhat like inventory of the, not really inventory, but assessment of the physical condition or the classroom
Mm.
condition and the unergonomic furniture pieces. Then
Mm.
the, what do you call this? The psychology of color, or not really the color. We will not siguro dwell on that.
Okay. So
Okay,
let's talk
so
about next week. Let's talk about your scope. No, that doesn't have
okay,
to have
sir.
so many.
Yes, sir.
You might not finish.
Okay,
So,
sir.
but you still lack one member.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anyway,
Mas preferably, sir, uh, connected to the academy as well. If
mm,
dugangan may isa ka group member.
yes, yes.
Mm-mm.
Um, let me just read through the
Thank you,
chat
sir.
box, just in case there's something that we missed. No. Um, So Group CDO, Architect Demetrio and Architect Respeto. Group EBSO, Veronica Arong and Julius Tadeo. Okay. MRIA, Caliso and Quijano, lacking one. Sanchez, Rosaria, Bulan, Mendoza, those are four people. And then Group Palawan Landscape, Architect Ezra Miguel, Jeline Pardon, and Christine Tombokon. So there are three of you. Do you belong to the same school in Group Palawan? Ezra still here? Anyway,
Yes,
um,
sir.
so the three
Um,
of you
we are
belong
office
to the
mates,
same
sir.
school. Office mates. Okay, so that's very
Yes, sir.
convenient.
Yes, po.
Architectural Science, Bulgarian, Tizon, Demetrio, Anthony. There was Demetrio before with
De
Respeto.
uh,
I think sir, that's Demeter.
Demeterio.
He's a
Ah,
guy.
Demetrio. Okay, sorry. I thought that okay, but this is a group of four people. And then Beagahi, Mika, Mendoza. Mika and Nikki are different.
Yes, sir. They are different.
Sir.
Okay, so I thought that they were the same last time. Dexter. Mm, Here, Demetrio refers to lacking one member. Tenorio Morales, Villadolid, Kahayag. So there are a lot with four members, and then there are still people with two members. Um, okay, uh, let me sleep on it. I will join Group CDO since I'm from Osamis. Okay, hello. Who does not have from the group here present, who does not have a group yet? All of you already have? So I guess I'm supposed to settle this before we end, but it seems that I cannot. But I will definitely settle it by Monday. By Monday, okay. So tomorrow I'll go over this group list, and there's a possibility that we will have more than one group with four members, and then I might ask you, send you emails asking for whether some of you are willing to go ahead with only two members. Okay, so if you're more comfortable having only two members, maybe I'll allow it. So because it's difficult to coordinate. Okay, so any more questions? No more questions. So I guess we'll have to end for now. Just keep in touch. Please stand by for the homework, but I already told you what it is. And then those who do not have USC email yet, please follow up this week so that we can already move on to Canvas. There are still four of you without USC email addresses. Four or five, I think. Nikki, you don't have the no?
Yes, sir.
Wala pa. So I think that makes you five. I did not count you because I thought it's the same as Mika. So, okay, so goodbye for now, and hope to hear from you for the homework. Okay,
Sir.
Bye,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.